Looky-loo, another wonderful WrestleRoni for me and you. We got to be professional today. We're punching above our weight a bit here. I'm happy to have you, Mr. Joe Dombrowski. How we feeling, my man?
I'm feeling good. Just another day on the grind, and happy to be doing what I love. And I appreciate you for having me and giving me this platform.
No doubt. I know you're a very busy dude. Man, I was just watching you Triple Mania. You were on the call. Let's hear about that. How was that experience for you?
It's a great challenge because not only are you working with a language barrier, but you are 100% live around the world. And the thing about Lucha Libre, it's so unpredictable.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to come next, and sometimes not even with who. But my favorite thing about Lucha Libre and AAA is the passion that those fans have, and you can look in the crowds and see generations. You can see granddads taking grandkids. You can see just that familial bond. So important, and the energy. I've had the privilege of doing a lot of those events remotely from home, and I've had the privilege of doing a lot of those events actually in the arena. And I know it's kind of cliche in wrestling, but there's no substitute for being able to feel that energy live in the arena. And if anybody has the ability to attend a Triple Mania or attend a authentic lucha event, I would absolutely advise you to do it. But it's great because you get something for everybody. You've got the high flying and acrobatics that people think of. You've got the lavish costumes and the generational talents like a Blue Demon Jr., like an Hijo del Vikingo, that kind of transcend through the years. You've got violence and blood and gore. You've got the luchadoras. You've got the scrambles and the copas, which are more rumble style matches. It really is something for everybody, and there's a lot of moving parts, and it's a challenge every single time, but it's a welcome challenge because there's no way you can look at 15, 17, 20,000 people in a baseball stadium or a soccer stadium and not feel motivated and not feel excited to be a part of this. And AAA does it big. There's nothing like it in Lucha Libre. And there's another one coming August 12th on Fight TV. And it's going to be from Mexico City. I think a lot of people would look at it because Triple Mania oftentimes is 3 in a year. It's not just one day or one weekend. You've got the Tijuana chapter, the Monterrey chapter, and the Mexico City chapter. And I think a lot of people would look at Mexico City as the biggest and the best of the year. And we get to see that on August 12th, live on Fight. I'll be on the call. Larry Dallas will be with me. And somebody's life is going to change forever that night because we've got 4 athletes in essentially a mask versus hair match. Lucha de Apuesta, if you will. We've got Hijo del Vikingo defending his mega title in a 4-way match against 3 of the absolute best athletes you'll find anywhere, and Daga and Jack Cartwheel and Speedball Mike Bailey. Yeah. I mean, Taya's going to be there defending the Reina de Reina's championship, their women's title. So something for everybody again. And even if something is not your cup of tea, I guarantee you something on that card will, because you're going to see violence, you're going to see mayhem, you're going to see athleticism, you're going to see unpredictability like only AAA brings you.
No doubt. They're always some of my favorite shows of the year. I love my Triple Mania and my Wrestle Kingdom. Those are my top shows. They didn't even give us time to recover from this last one. The last one was so good, and boom, here comes another one right down the pike.
I haven't recovered yet. I mean, 4 weeks between these events, I mean, it takes so much out of you because, wrestling is always a relationship based on emotion, right? But AAA takes that to a whole new level. And when you finally come down and exhale after a AAA event, you know you've been on a roller coaster. You know you have felt a true experience, right? And you just got to sit there and take a breather and like, wow,
I
we
can
we
only imagine. Be-
yeah, we
because
survived another one, you know.
yeah, I mean, I have to do that at these live shows in front of, 50 people in West Virginia. I got to sit back after running the camera and to take it all in. So I can imagine on that level. See, that's kind of what I wanted to get at. You're at that level calling the biggest shows of the year. But at one time, you was just an IWC fan. Can you tell me about how you transitioned into IWC into wrestling?
Well, I always knew I wanted to be involved in some form or fashion, and I knew I didn't have the athletic skill to be a wrestler,
I'm with you.
but I felt my goals would be better geared towards my strengths, which I thought I had a decent mind, and when I'm in the moment, I thought I was a decent talker. Um, Obviously both of those have evolved over time, but at that point I thought those were the two parts that I could cultivate. And once I finally went to my first IWC event, because I had watched independent wrestling on Pittsburgh TV back in the late '90s when wrestling was booming everywhere, and I
Right.
had heard about local shows, but nothing ever got me motivated to get off my couch and actually find a way to get down to one of them in person until I heard a radio ad for IWC July 20th, 2002 at the Isoplex in Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, because the main event was Jerry the King Lawler versus the Ugandan giant Kamala.
Ooh.
And uh, me being the aficionado that I tried to be, going back to when I'm 5 or 6 years old, I've got a tape um, from I believe it was King Kong Bundy: The Missing Matches that was
Ooh.
bought for me at Suncoast Video at Ross Park Mall. And one of the matches on that tape, it was Bundy versus Lawler from Memphis. It was Fabulous Ones. It was Randy Savage. It was PYT Express. One of the matches was Kamala versus Jerry the King Lawler.
Hmm.
So I'm watching this tape. It's only 30 minutes long, but I'm watching it ad nauseum as a 5 or 6 year old in whatever 1991. Now I have the chance to see that match in person in front of me, sit in the first or second row,
Hmm.
interact with these guys, and going to that event changed my life because I was hooked. You're not up in the nosebleeds. You can meet these guys, you can interact with these guys, and it's not just Lawler and Kamala. It's Christian York and Joey Matthews. It's Balls Mahoney. It's Little Guido. It's Colt Cabana. It's Chris Hero.
Chew.
Um, up and down the card, it's quality talent. The very first match I saw featured what became my very first favorite independent wrestler, who was M Dog 20 Mac Cross.
Nice.
And I knew I had to be here every single month, and it was so close. You could feel the energy. I was like, I don't know how, I don't know when, but this is my way in. This is how I can make this happen. And it only took me 4 months to figure it out because they had done a couple of fundraiser events for area high schools or charities, whatever the case.
Hmm.
And just at that time, my Spanish class in high school was looking to raise money for a field trip. So I bridge those two sides of my life together, and next thing I know, at barely 17 years old, I'm pushing tickets, I'm hanging posters, I'm making announcements on the school PA. I'm doing whatever I can to push this event and make that a success because now I'm doing it. I'm involved, and that enabled me to sit in on commentary for most of the event, and that enabled me to start doing writing for the website, and it was just a process from there. Stick around, keep yourself on people's minds, keep bothering people, and wait for the next opportunity because it's going to come. And January 25th was that event that I helped co-promote, and then it was 8 months of just where do I fit in, what's next, how do I do more. And that's a crazy thing, because if you would have told me, if you would have asked me January 25th after that show, when I came down from that,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have said, I lived the dream, I accomplished my goal. If that's it, I can live with it. I
I
want
feel it.
more. I
Mm-hmm.
want more, but if that's it, then at least I can say I did it. Fast forward now 20 years and some 800 events and 8,000 matches later, um, we're as deep in it than ever. But it only took me 8 months from that event to being full time on the announce team, and actually prove that I had something to offer. And I give credit to Norm Connors for noticing it, because listening back to my stuff at that point,
Mm-hmm.
I was justifiably awful. I had never done it. I had never been taught. It was very much learning on the fly.
Uh-huh.
So I had to make mistakes as I went. And credit to Norm for seeing something in me that maybe only me and a few others saw in myself, and gave me the chance to grow into the role that I was meant to be in.
Right on. And then from there, I mean, you're off to the races. We were even looking at you're running your own promotion at one point. What can you tell me about that?
Well, that was one of the promises I made to myself I would never do.
Really?
I would never, because there's so much stress and there's so much pressure, and I promised myself I wouldn't run a show, and I promised myself I wouldn't put my own money into any project. And I've broken both those promises time and again, but for the right reasons. And at a much different point in my life than when I originally, made those promises. But time and a place is the answer to so much of it, because so much opportunity, it's not necessarily even, are you the best guy for the job? It's who's here, who do we know,
Okay.
who can handle it, who's within our budget, who's within driving distance. So many factors like that go into it. But I had started doing play-by-play for television in Cleveland, Ohio, for JT Lightning's Cleveland All Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
And that was the first time I met a young, plucky, slightly chubby at the time, young 18, 19-year-old whippersnapper by the name of Johnny Gargano.
Nice.
Not sure whatever happened to him, but
He's doing all right.
I feel like he's made matters work for him. But it was so great to do that TV and work with Claudio Castagnoli and Alex Shelley and Tracy Smothers and Zach Gowen, and the list goes on and on.
Uh-huh.
And at this point, I'm 20 years old, so I'm still wet behind the ears. I'm still green as grass, and learning my way. But we had a good run the first year on Sports Time Ohio, which was the cable television home of what was then called the Cleveland Indians. And after the first year run, JT, from what I understand, did not want to continue with the television outlet and wanted to just run events, house show style, old school style. And there were a number of other people that did want to continue. So there was, let's say, some personal differences above my head that thankfully I'm probably still not totally privy to. But bottom line is, the number 2 in command and the head of production decided to sign that television contract for the second year. And if you don't want to do it, we'll do it ourselves. And that's what started Pro Wrestling Ohio, that I started booking and managing. And at first I was helping Josh Prohibition as kind of an assistant booker. And as time went on and years went on, it was more and more responsibility, more and more time, more and more power, and unfortunately, by the end, more and more money having to be spent. But those 6 years, I put more of myself into that than any other project, and being able to work with a very, very young core group of guys and grow up with them, of Gargano and Matt Cross and Gregory Iron and Matthew Justice and Eric Ryan and Ricky Shane Page, Joaquin Wilde, and then the list goes on and on. Got Madison Rain, guys and girls that we used that weren't there yet, myself included, weren't there yet, but we were in an environment to all help ourselves get there, because we're doing television, we're doing episodic storytelling, were having to do promos and in-ring interviews and segments that weren't matches and other things like that you wouldn't see on an ordinary independent show. But we could grow up with it and we could evolve with it. And all of those episodes are still available now on my streaming channel, ProWrestlingLibrary.com. And I'm so proud of all of them because of what they represent and how much elbow grease went into them. And running a wrestling company or even producing a wrestling show, one of the most stressful, thankless jobs. Not good for the mental health.
I'm sure.
Proud I did it. Would I go back and do it all again with those same people? Yeah. If you came to me with a new prospect and a new opportunity that had the same amount of work, don't know that I could dive headfirst in at that point today.
Yeah,
but
man.
I'm very proud of those 6 years.
I'm so glad I asked that question. I didn't know all that. At 20 years old, you said, well, we'll do it instead then. And you had a group of guys that would go with you and start the TV deal.
Yeah, and it wasn't even my call. I was in the dark at first.
Okay.
Because it was the head of production and it was the sponsor guy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they needed a voice for television and they needed help with talent and booking and coordination. And again, time, place, opportunity. It wasn't necessarily, well, we're bringing you on to do these specific things. It was, what can you do? How much can you do?
Okay.
And it evolved. And, year one, I was hungry and young and motivated. And year 6, I was beat to hell and burned out and ready to get out.
Yeah.
But it was a hell of a ride.
Wow. I can only imagine. I'm definitely going to have to check out those old episodes as soon as possible.
For sure.
Heck yeah. So then you find yourself in Ring of Honor. How was the Ring of Honor experience?
Loved it. It's another challenge. It was another rung up the ladder. And I owe so much to Jimmy Jacobs, who was the one who kind of spearheaded putting my name out there in front of Adam Pearce and Kerry Silken.
Mm-hmm.
But they needed a regular announce crew because it was Dave Prazak doing a lot of the heavy lifting because the old team had basically been separated when Gabe Sapolsky was relieved of his duties. Right. And Lenny Leonard went with Gabe, and Prazak stayed in Ring of Honor. So Prazak was working with Mike Hogwood on the HDNet TV. He was starting to do some stuff with Kevin Kelly on the iPay-per-views. Mm-hmm. And the straight to DVDs, I think it just came down to whoever was in the office that day. Maybe Chris Hero would stop by. Maybe Shane Hagedorn can, relieve himself of his office duties for long enough, or whoever else. It was kind of a revolving door. They didn't have a set guy. And I was, only not even a state away from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh. So they gave me a shot, and it was good enough to have a consistent 9-month run there until they decided to consolidate all their teams to Kevin and Dave, which at the time was the right move. And obviously Kevin was a huge help for that company and a huge help for me. I still say me and Ian Riccaboni are Kevin's 2 sons. We're he's our dad. So he's done so much to help both of us. And I was in and out for a number of years whenever Kevin couldn't make it, whenever they needed somebody. And then in 2017, I came back in pretty regularly to do Future of Honor, which is my chance to work with the young guys and girls. And, it's how I met Luchasaurus and Chris Bay and Griff Garrison and Marcus Cross and Cheeseburger and Eli and Ryan and all those other guys. I was hungry. I wanted more. I wanted to do more than one match, an event. But,
sure.
It's what was there. You make the most of what's given, And I did that until COVID, until I couldn't do it anymore when the job was eliminated. But Ring of Honor was the first national company to take a chance on me, to believe in me, to fly me places. I think it was the first time in wrestling I'd been paid via check.
Oh, okay, right.
So a lot of firsts. I think the first time I had to file taxes. I mean, there's a lot that goes with it. It was a first, but I'm very proud of it, and I'm grateful that the Ring of Honor name is still alive and is
Yeah.
still thriving with Tony. And I hope that it continues to do that because um, as long and as big as Ring of Honor gets, my name will always be part of the history, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, and a part of some moments. You were there for some good stuff, so props to you. And I was just thinking, you've been on the scene. When I look at indie wrestling, I think it started getting good in '98, and then around '02, '03, it just boomed, in my mind at least. And you're a big part of that. You had a big hand in a lot of things that's happened over the years. What can you tell me about how you've seen the game, the indie scene at least, evolve, and what you've seen happen? The good, the bad, the ugly.
I mean, it's a completely different animal.
Hmm.
When I started, if you wanted to get booked, I mean, the protocol was still very much uh, send a VHS tape in the mail
Hmm.
with a letter. You know, this is before YouTube. This is before video on demand. It's clearly before streaming.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a lot less money in independent wrestling back then because you're kind of at the mercy of the promoters to give you the platform to build your brand. Now it's not the case anymore because there's social media and there's Patreon and there's Twitch and there's all these other outlets that give people the chance to, pro wrestling tees and all of the just kind of homemade merch stores.
Hmm.
All these outlets to give people a chance to put themselves out there. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm about. Here's my content that I want to create. If you like it, great. Please support me. If not, thanks for checking me out. Change the game because there's so many ways to make income now.
Hmm.
I probably have 8 different sources of revenue.
Nice.
Are any of them making me rich? No. Can
Still.
you can you add them all together and you know go back in time and tell 2003 me and it would blow his mind? Absolutely.
Right, right.
And that's what it is. It's about that progress again, next step on the ladder. Um, so the game is completely different because people's voices on the internet are amplified. The internet has been a blessing and a curse for wrestling
Mm.
because it's easier to find things, it's easier to get your name out there, and it's easier to find your audience. But there's also people that don't understand how to use the internet to make money.
Right.
And they use it to whine and cry, or my girlfriend left me, or I have to double shift at Arby's today, and no,
Yeah. No.
you're killing the aura. You're hurting. You're not. It's not about hurting this. You're hurting your business.
Mm.
Because I don't want to pay to see the guy double shifting at Arby's.
Thank you. Yeah.
I want to believe that you're what you're selling me.
Mm.
And if you're selling me this rich, suave Southern California ladies man, and then you get in your feelings at 11 o'clock at night, and you're mad that you don't have any Tinder matches. There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
It's just like back in the day, which is still true today, but especially back in the day. If you're cutting a promo, you can't say, when we get in the ring tonight, I am going to kill you and literally rip your head off.
Mm.
I hate your guts so badly, nana boo boo. And then you get into the ring, the bell rings. All right, collar elbow tie up, wrist lock, headlock, takeover. Disconnect. What
Right.
you are selling me has to be the same thing I'm paying for. Or else, why am I giving you return business? Every single post somebody makes on social media is either a deposit or a withdrawal in their value to the public.
Well,
But nobody sees it that way. People see it as, oh, it's my personal diary. And I can share which politician I like, and I can tell you which sports athletes I hate, and I can tell you unfiltered opinion on this marginalized group over here? No, no one cares. I
Yes.
promise you, no one cares what you think. Why can I say that? Because I know no one cares what I think. I don't put my personal business out there any more beyond the means of interacting with fans and friends
Mm-hmm.
and selling what I need to for my business because this is my job.
Right on.
Um, and the fact that people don't do that is costing themselves money and it's hurting the business. Oh, here's me with my arm around the guy I'm in a blood feud with. All right. If you want to tell me that you're full of BS, cool.
Uh,
I'm not. Because when I'm here selling you something, I believe it and I mean it. If not, I wouldn't expect you to buy it.
I
Don't
love
insult
it.
people's intelligence.
Hey man, words of wisdom right here on WrestleRoni. Very well put. Thank you for that. And the man knows. Let's talk about MLW while we're at it. I'm a huge MLW fan. Love your work. You make the wrestling feel like a big fight. It makes it feel legitimate. What can you tell me about the atmosphere or anything about Major League Wrestling?
Well, and again, I think that goes back to perception is reality because in MLW, we're not talking about performers or entertainers. We're talking about fighters and combatants, and we're not talking about um, we're not discussing the oeuvre of a performance. We're
Mm-hmm.
discussing the fighting styles, right? Styles make fights. Well, this guy trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and this guy trained in European catch wrestling, and what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like early UFC because
Yeah.
early UFC before everybody realized that nobody can beat Hoist Gracie. It was very much all the different fighting styles. Here's a sumo guy versus a karate guy. Here's a
Mm-hmm.
sambo guy versus a mat wrestler. Who's going to win? Which style is supreme? And so much of that bleeds over to MLW because MLW has one of the most, I would suggest, diverse locker rooms, not just in terms of ethnicity, but
Mm-hmm.
in terms of background, in terms of origin story, in terms of everybody's got their own different journey that brought them to the dance, and I think that makes the shows have so much more flavor to them.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody feels the same. Nobody is going to. Well, no two people are going to wrestle the same unless if they do, that's part of the intrigue.
Right.
Like Timothy Thatcher and Tracy Williams at our Never Say Never pay per view
Mm-hmm.
back in the month of July, or Davey Boy Smith and Tracy Williams in the Opera Cup finals upcoming on television. Anything like that. Um, but I think MLW has really found the sweet spot because you have the lights and the production, the glitz
Mm-hmm.
of a big time TV show that your television networks, that your marketing executives, that your advertisers are going to want to look at,
Mm-hmm.
but you still haven't lost the grit and the edge and the danger that people may remember from the Attitude Era or ECW or Mid South or Japan or whatever your specific flavor is that you prefer. It's still got that danger and that unpredictability. It's not so polished and so smooth and so homogenized that you can call, oh, well, here comes the commercial break and here comes this or that.
Yeah.
You can still feel a rawness to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like about it. And that's what helps bring out the best out of me. Because if I can't feel it, then I can't make you feel it. But it's a very hungry locker room. And there's always new blood coming in. And there's always guys fighting for that next spot up the ladder. And that motivates me because you never see somebody show up to MLW complacent and going through the motions. It's always, all right, I got to be on my A game.
That's awesome. Yeah, like you said, the production, it really got me back into indie wrestling when MLW came back. I was watching all these guys on MLW with, like you said, the great production, the lights, everything, and then I would say, oh, I want to watch Joey Janela here, and MLW is that nice little gateway that's getting a lot of folks into independent wrestling, I think, and still just knocking it out of the park every single episode. So couldn't be happier for what you guys are doing. You'd mentioned journeys. You've seen a lot of people come and go. Tell me about one of your favorite journeys of a fellow colleague, a wrestler, a good come up story.
Gosh. I mean, my favorite story in wrestling
Mm-hmm.
is one I did a full documentary on, and I won't give this as the only answer
Okay.
because I think his story's very much been out there for so long, but I mean I always go to Zach Gallen,
Yeah.
and the fact that there was never a pro wrestler with one leg before, overcame cancer, um, got signed at 19, too much too soon, lost it all, hit rock bottom, you know, drug and alcohol, and has been clean and sober now for a long time.
Good.
I'm trying to think of the exact. I think it's been like 12, 13 years.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and he was a completely different person coming out of that. And he's a family man now, and he's doing speaking tours at schools to help other kids uh, follow their dreams and not fall down the wrong path and cope with being different. All the great messages that you learn the hard way. And through Zach, um, a young kid with cerebral palsy named Gregory Iron watched him, and that gave him the confidence that he could be a wrestler.
Yep.
And he started training in Cleveland, and he was part of that crew, and he grew to become one of my most valuable uh, confidants, professional and personal. Um, Great mind, uh, never say die attitude. A guy who had only one fully functioning arm, but still worked out diligently and was in better shape than half of most locker rooms he walked into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the come up stories that I'm drawn to the most
Mm-hmm.
are the ones I can see myself in them.
Mm-hmm.
Like Gregory Iron or Johnny Gargano, where you've got this awkward, socially inept young kid who doesn't really know how to function in the world day to day, but knows they belong here and knows how bad they want it. And I've always felt a soft spot for those guys, and to kind of give them like, all right, here's a little nudge forward, you know, because I mean, Johnny grew up very sheltered. He went to an all boys school. Didn't have self confidence. He was overweight as a kid. Um, but every time I went to his house, there was that Shawn Michaels drawing on his wall that his mom painted like 10, 15 years earlier.
Wow.
And it's like he always knew what he wanted to be. And it's like he always looked up to Shawn. He always grew up watching Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho and wanted to be them. And then when he got into the business, Alex Shelley got out of that list, and he took a lot from Alex. And Alex is another guy that doesn't get the credit, nor does he credit himself for what a great mentor and leader he's been to so many young kids.
Yeah.
I've seen it firsthand. I think Shelley gets into his own head a little bit and gets some self doubt, but man, just the amount of knowledge he has and the cool factor he brought to wrestling at the time too, and he was dressing different, acting different when few people really got the like punk kind of alternative kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Gargano latched onto him, and just to go from being in Gargano's like little home office on his computer, like compulsively watching wrestling clips on like the brand new invention called YouTube.com, and Sean's on the wall, and there's like pictures of Gargano dressed as Sean for Halloween as a kid, and like then he goes to NXT, and like Sean's his boss, Sean's his mentor, Sean's the guy he goes to for advice. Like
Uh-huh.
Gargano was a talking head on the A&E Shawn Michaels biography. Like how surreal is that? Like they
Yeah.
text each other. Like I'll never forget 19, 20-year-old Johnny just like in the locker room before his match, just like nervously pacing, just like wearing a hole in the floor
Uh-huh.
because he had all this energy and he was committed to making every single match he was in the best. Um, and to see where he's gone, I can't say I'm surprised, but I'm so incredibly proud to watch him grow up right in front of me. And maybe 1% of that I can maybe he'd give me credit for. I don't know. I'm not going to take any, but like to be a part of that journey, I'm just so happy for him. And I know there's still a lot more he can do that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he's still got some years, so I'm excited for what the future holds. Like you say, well, I'll say they're not using him to his full potential right now, but very cool. As a fan to watch that story and to know what a fan he was of Sean and to know, yeah, so good, and that's so awesome you were a part of that. Well, how's wrestling looking right now as far as the whole scene? Do you think we're in a good place?
I think we're in a very good place. I think wrestling has never been in a better place in the 20 years I've been in it.
Okay.
Um, More jobs,
Mhm.
more money, which means more opportunities to be gainfully employed. Um, and as those guys get signed to those bigger companies, it's up to the independents to have the mentality of next man up, next woman up, who's ready,
Mhm.
you know. Um, but when I broke in, WWE was the only place to make a full time living, and they were not hiring wrestling people as announcers. So they were hiring sports guys straight out of college.
Mm.
So selfishly and unselfishly, I was always rooting for Impact and rooting for Ring of Honor.
Mhm.
Because when I broke in, they were both less than a year old.
Right.
And one of them was running a pay per view every Wednesday night on a shoestring budget, and the other one was running one, maybe two events a month in your local armory.
Mhm.
It wasn't anything like what it became for both of those companies. Um, but now, I mean, WWE is doing great, thriving, never been more profitable. Um, some of the characters on their programming um, have caught a wave and they're hot. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't you can't not enjoy the Bloodline. You can't not enjoy Sami Zayn and
Yep.
L.A. Knight.
Mhm.
Uh, Judgment Day, Dominic and Rhea,
Yeah.
um, Becky, Bianca. I mean, there's so many talents there. After so many years of things just feeling so stagnant and so the same,
Yep.
there's so many talents that are jumping off the page at you now.
Mhm.
And that's only going to make AEW better to keep up. And doing 70,000 in Wembley, it's
Phew.
crazy.
Yeah.
Um, finishing number one on their night most nights for Collision
Mhm.
and sometimes Dynamite. Huge,
Mhm.
huge. And you can look at it and say, well, the ratings compared to blah 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 25 years ago, television's different, the world's different. They're number
Yep.
one. That's what matters. Same with Raw, same with SmackDown. So to have those two companies representing our business so well, so publicly on such a big platform,
Mhm.
um, a high tide rises all ships, right? Because now you hear, oh, Impact's doing their best buy rates and their best crowds in years, and MLW moving to Fight Plus, and we just had a 13-week run on a cable home, and
Yep.
there's always a next there, and Ring of Honor's kind of settled into its spot, and GCW is still touring the world, and
Mhm.
Japan's hot, and Mexico's doing big business, and um, the world is smaller than it's ever been, and that means more opportunities and hopefully more guys making a steady living off of this. So I'm very excited to see where wrestling goes, and I just hope that the people steering the ships can keep making those decisions to build off of this momentum.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree. And I'm so glad we have you on here. Like I told you before the interview, this whole channel, I want to document wrestling any way I can. If it's the smallest fed or what's happening in the world, I just want to document it for it to be on YouTube. So that brings me to you and all the footage you dig up. what can you tell me about some of the stuff you find? It blows my mind.
It all started in 2015 or 16 or so.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving through Cincinnati, and Les Thatcher, a recent Tragos Thez Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame inductee in Waterloo, by the way, um, met up with Les Thatcher
Mm-hmm.
to hang out and talk. And I don't know if we got a bite to eat because our diets are very different. But hey, I'm passing through. Want to meet up? And I don't remember how the conversation got this way, but I ended up leaving Cincinnati with a giant box full of VHS tapes from his garage.
Ooh.
And that's how I found what became the Wrestling from the Heartland series, and what became the Brian Pillman Memorial Show anthology. Because all those tapes were just sitting there for 20 years.
Mm.
And most of them had never been released outside of a VHS on a merch table on an HWA show one night.
Right.
They were never in stores, they were never available online. This is 2001. It's the infancy of selling things online. So I thought there was a market for this. And I started going through those tapes and pulling out, wait, Les, you had John Cena there? You had Big Show there? You had, like, what became almost the entire Cruiserweight division? Like, so much gold there. Wait,
Right.
Les, you have the full match of that rapid delivery Rory Fox kid that you profiled on the MTV True Life special? Holy crap.
Holy crap, you're right.
Why is this not out there? So, Les, to his credit, listened to me and one of my dumb ideas. Let's do a compilation of Heartland. And we couldn't do the Pillmans because the family owned the rights. And the family was obviously very, very separated from wrestling for a long time.
Right.
And then I struck up a friendship with Pillman Jr.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Brian, I got a crazy idea. Hear me out. We can honor your family and get you paid. And I bridged that together. I bridged the Pillman family. I said, Brian, you handle your mom, I'll handle Les, and we'll get this done. And that's how the Pillman Memorial set came out. And at that point, the Pillman set, far and away, most successful release I've ever produced.
Heck yeah.
I could not keep up with the sales.
Yeah?
I had to buy new equipment. And just when the sales started dying down, Les Thatcher asked Jim Cornette to mention on his podcast, and they flew back up again.
Oh, okay.
So, very thankful for that. So, that got the gears going. And it's like, what else is left out there? Like when I was coming up in the business, everybody said, well, the lost footage was the last Battle of Atlanta with Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer. Well, they found that since then. And everybody was like, wait, there's this Tom McGee guy who had an infamously bad match with Bret Hart. And, well, we found the Tom McGee footage too. What's left? And it got me kind of searching through my personal collection, and it got me looking through some other people's collections. And there's a few things I'm working on that are out there but aren't out there. A lot of the stuff now that's gone on my YouTube the past few months are just things that I have and I've collected that I either didn't know I had or forgot I had or didn't realize they weren't publicly out there. And you know what? Much like you want to document wrestling with your show, I want to preserve wrestling history.
Yes.
Those nooks and crannies that maybe aren't owned by Stamford and they aren't owned by a company still operating. If it's something lost to time, let's bring it back. And there's a whole new generation that will appreciate it and maybe people that can learn from it. And I'm not done yet because I'm doing some deep dives, and I think in the next, probably not in 23, but hopefully in 24 and 25, I'm going to pull out some stuff that you either never knew existed or you completely forgot you wanted to see.
Oh, my.
Stay tuned.
Yay. No, I'm excited. And thank you. You deserve a big thank you for that because that's awesome. The Pillman Memorial Show, I was a huge tape trader back in like 98 through probably 2002. I remember having the first show, but I never got to see the other ones. Then I saw the advertisement. It's got all these extras. Yeah, there's a reason that stuff sells. People do want to see it, and people will continue to want to see it. So definitely thank you for that.
It was that elusive, almost mythical group of shows. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you'd love to walk out into a field and see Bigfoot and just be able to know,
Mm-hmm.
you know. The only thing that really escaped out of the Pillman shows was Regal versus Benoit.
Yeah, right.
That got out there, but nobody knows. Like, oh, there's Edge Christian and the Hardys and Diamond Dallas Page and Mick Foley and Rey Mysterio and Conan and Eddie Guerrero, and the list goes on
Mm-hmm.
of names that were there and part of it. And yeah, '98 that was the closest thing there was ever to an official release of anything. I think the other stuff was again just in Cincinnati, just on VHS. But it's history because it's WWF, WCW, ECW all together.
Yep.
And it's Steve Austin at an independent show.
Mm-hmm.
3 months after beating Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it happened. So if you're a historian or you are a tape trader and you appreciate that time, you need it because that didn't happen anywhere and was allowed to be filmed,
Right.
except with less.
Yeah. I remember when it happened. Me and you's in the same age range. The internet, people couldn't believe it, but because Brian was such a special dude, it happened. So that's that pro wrestling magic we talk about on the show, and I'm glad you preserved it and it's in good quality. What's some future goals for Joe Dombrowski? Or have you done it all?
Oh God, no.
No, okay, good.
I haven't done it all by any stretch of the imagination. There's always rungs of the ladder to climb.
Mm-hmm.
There's always places to go. MLW is still growing. AAA has their eye on growing their footprint in the U.S. market.
Yeah.
I've got my personal projects that I am working on as far as just content and distribution. Going to have a couple calls later this week that may dictate some fun news for me before this month ends. Stay tuned.
Good.
But until I'm on an island somewhere with at least an 8-figure bank account,
Mm-hmm.
Which, spoiler alert, is not fiscally possible anytime soon. There's work to be done. There's history to be preserved. There's new history to be made. And as long as there's hungry talent out there that have emotion-fueled stories, I want to be there to tell them. I have worked with Dominic DeNucci, who I think was born in the early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And I have worked with Nick Wayne, who was born in 2005.
Right.
And everywhere in between. I want to be a part of that. I still love what I do. I still feed off of the energy. And, I don't have one of those Cody Rhodes checklists handy, but I'm going to continue to go and do whatever and wherever I feel I can best contribute and where I'm most wanted and needed. And right now and for this foreseeable future, that's as one of the voices of Major League Wrestling and as one of the English voices of AAA, in addition to AAW and Warrior Wrestling and IWC and WFA and all these other places that I work at and keep a very full, involved schedule. But as they say, you ain't seen nothing yet because, I think I'm just now, maybe in the past year or two, hitting my prime. So
True.
the best is yet to come.
I can't wait. For real. Props to you and thank you for what you do for wrestling. I think you're a blessing to wrestling. I've told you myself. In the final 10 minutes, Joe, I ask everybody any bits of advice you could give to up-and-coming wrestlers. But you know what? I'm a year into the business, so I'm pretty new. What kind of advice could you give somebody like me that runs the camera, that does the podcast, does the editing, the odd jobs behind the scenes? What could you tell a person like that?
I think, God, this is a whole different podcast into itself.
Well, you say all you want to say. We'll give it extra time. That's
I
fine.
mean, I think the most important thing is be prepared to do grunt work and have to earn your spot. Like I've had so many people ask me, like, "Oh, I would love to be the booker of my local indie. How do I do that?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I told you to follow my path, it would never work because my path, that wasn't the goal. It happened.
Right.
But if that involves hanging up posters or tearing tickets or setting up rings or working concession stands or whatever, you got to be ready because you can't go to a school and train. You can't work a match. You can't sell tickets for people to come see you. So you may have to put a little more elbow grease in to prove you belong because
Yeah.
you're not necessarily traditionally paying your dues. And if you keep building up that trust and that equity, maybe one day there'll be a spot open in where you see yourself and you can try to do that. It's going to take you a while to make money.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's going to be, well, we need an extra hand. Who's on deck? You have to build value for yourself. You're being paid based on value, based
Mm-hmm.
on contributions. And when I started, I had no value because I had no skill set. I was this guy that wanted to do it. I had to work my ass off to build value, so then I can command even the smallest amount of money, and then build from there. And with that, I would say after a certain amount of time, the advice becomes know your worth. And know your worth is not just, that doesn't mean raise your price and highball everybody. That's not a one-sided street.
Mm-hmm.
It's know your worth relative to where you are. If you're working for a bigger place that pays everybody X amount of money and you're getting a third of X, maybe that should be a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a place that can only pay you less, but that's to scale with everybody there and you have fun and it's close to home, well, maybe that's more worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be a fan of the business, but don't be a mark for the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference is we're all fans. We all watch it because we love it. But I think if you're a mark to the business, you don't approach it as a business.
Okay.
It's just, well, I want to have fun and this guy's in the main event and I grew up watching him and I would love to ring announce him or ref for him or film him or whatever. That would just make my heart so aflutter. I don't even need paid. No.
No. Okay.
If you've worked to that point where you have value, if a promoter is saying you're better at job X than these other guys, I want you to be my guy, know your worth.
Right on.
Or if you really suck and you're just starting, know your worth.
Right.
Don't say, yeah, my buddy's been doing this 10 years and he gets $100, so I want that too. No. Maybe one day, sure. But again, rungs of the ladder. You're not going to climb a ladder and step on rung 1 and then step on rung 18. You got to go on all the little rungs. I'd say be in an environment where you can, your creativity can grow, and not that you have to run the show, but you get enough leeway to kind of do your thing and develop and be comfortable. And a great piece of advice too is, and it's going to sound weird until you think about it, try to be the worst person everywhere you go. And what I mean by that is if you're working at a hole in the wall with 8 fans in the crowd, only 3 of them paid, and you're the most talented guy there, unless you're making enough money to pay a bill or, take the girlfriend out or, make a car payment, unless you're doing that, time to go. You want to be the worst guy on the show so you can learn from everybody.
Okay.
Would I have learned as much in XYZ ABC Pro Wrestling in middle of nowhere, Kentucky, as I would in Ring of Honor? Of course not.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to be looking for the next step and the next challenge, and to put yourself in positions to grow. Don't be the big fish in the small pond. Hey, I got the best body on the roster, and they put me in the main event, and you know what? I go home with that $15 payday every night.
Mm-hmm.
I've made it. No, because then you're in a bubble and you're fooling yourself. And I think it's better to go try. It's easier to try than to prove it can't be done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better to go try than just settle and be complacent. So, in short, stay hungry, stay motivated, and keep pushing yourself, because a lot of times in a professional setting,
mm-hmm.
being uncomfortable is a good thing, because that means you're challenging yourself and you're probably learning something.
I love it. I appreciate that more than you know. And so, hey, man, I'm setting up rings. I ain't in the best shape, but I'm moving them poles and setting up rings and ringing bells on occasion, doing what I can. So I'd like to think I'm on the right path, but good words of wisdom. I'll watch this back a few times. In the last few minutes, Joe, anything you want to plug, your socials, all your merch and tapes, everything you got, whatever you want to throw out there, let them know.
You can check out my official website at joe-dombrowski.com. All of my releases are available on DVD. You can check out pretty much my entire show history up to probably 2021 or so. I got the whole history out there. I do not update my schedule well. I apologize for that. But there's an About Me. There's some links in there. And, of course, I have 500 hours available for streaming video content at ProWrestlingLibrary.com. The Pillmans, Heartland, Zach Gowen's life story, all the stuff that I was running and booking in Cleveland, and a whole lot more. ProWrestlingLibrary.com is going to undergo a facelift after August 31st because Pivot Share, my host site, is shutting down.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I don't know what it's going to look like on September 1st. Mm-hmm. It may take a while to find a home for all of the content as opposed to just bits and pieces that are the hot sellers, because bandwidth is apparently expensive.
Yeah.
But so if you want to sample something, I'd encourage you to do it in the month of August. September, it may take a little bit to get back on our feet and walking and running again. It's at Pro Wrestling Library is the YouTube URL, and I got a lot of fun, really rare Pittsburgh independent footage and territory footage, and again, a lot of stuff that I've produced over the years. You can find me on Twitter on X, right? It's not Twitter anymore.
Yeah, what?
You can X me on at Joe_Dombrowski or at Joseph_Dombrowski on the Instagrams. I'm debating making a Threads. We'll see if I do that or not. We'll see if that holds weight in the public eye. But please check out where I'll be, what I'll be doing. MLW is Thursday nights at 8 Eastern on YouTube and on Fight Plus. We have a big premium live event on Fight Plus coming up on Sunday, September 3rd. It is before All Out,
okay,
6 to 8, so you can enjoy both.
Smart.
And our event, it's called Fury Road. It's a part of your Fight Plus subscription, so $7.99 gets you that and a hell of a lot more every month. And it's Triple Mania, August 12th. Hijo del Vikingo on top, defending the Mega title. And it's going to be Psycho Clown, Sam Adonis, L.A. Park, and Roosh. And it's a lucha de apuesta. Somebody's losing a mask. Somebody's losing their hair. And if you missed the event in July, on July 15th, you missed out on the return dream match with Vikingo and Kenny Omega. So you can go back and check out that replay as well. But anything I've said here, if it tickles your fancy, check it out. Support what you like. Don't go online and talk crap about what you don't like, because nobody cares, I promise you. Positive thinking is what's going to advance the business. Vote with your dollar. Tell us what you do like, what we should check out, and hopefully that's something that I've brought to the table here tonight as well. But keep spreading the love and the passion and the word of pro wrestling, and let's keep this unique and bizarre medium continuing to grow.
I love it. Couldn't have put it better. Is that not what we're about on this show? Positivity. And that's, hey, he summed it up. You know how we do. Treat each other with kindness and respect. Go out there and live your dreams. Support independent wrestling. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure, Mr. Joe Dombrowski. What a show. Y'all stay tuned to the next one. Watch MLW, watch AAA. It don't matter what show you're watching. I bet he's on the call. Mark my words. See you next time.